All right, guys, welcome to another special edition of Ade and Friends. And I've got some friends, I've got some good ones here as well. I'm happy with this lineup, very, very happy. I've got Kojo from Raps on TV. Guys, you know, I said on my the back of my video yesterday that we need to start supporting other YouTubers. We always look at the big guys with the hundreds of thousands of subscribers, the guys out there that are doing their things, and maybe because they don't have major numbers, you guys maybe think they're not doing their thing. Kojo Raps on TV. Let me just give you a quick brief of what he's done in the last couple of months. I was jealous that he had my Nigerian brother, F.A. Jagber, on there. F.A. Jagber was on his show. He's had Keith Furman. He's had Joshua Boatsi. I mean, he's doing his thing. Go and support the channel. That's Kojo from Raps on TV. We've got Daryl from Boxing Lowdown. You guys would have known that Daryl was on the famous green chair about 3-4 months ago. Knows his stuff. Been chucking out the content as well. I think Daryl's onto something as well here because Daryl's been interviewing fans outside of events. And I think that's something we don't really see from YouTube channels, especially boxing YouTube channels. So Daryl, well done with that. Guys, we're going to get straight into it here. The first subject I want to talk about is Jarrell Miller. Jarrell Miller is back officially July 9th against Jerry Forrest. Heavyweight with, I think, a record of 23-3. Jarrell Miller is expected to get past Jerry Forrest. Be honest, what do you make of Jarrell Miller's come back to the ring? Are you angry about it? Has he served his time? And what do you think he can do as well in this heavyweight mix? Mo, I'll go to you first. What's your thoughts on Jarrell Miller being back? Sorry, Kojo, apologies. I'll go to you first. What's your thoughts on Jarrell Miller being back?
Yes. And first of all, Ade, definitely thank you for having me on this platform. Watch your shows. Love the way that you just sit on the green chair and then just talk boxing and give us information. And I really appreciate this opportunity. In terms of Jarrell Miller, I think for me, I'm not too fussed to see him back. I see it as he has served a sentence in one sense, because at the end of the day, he didn't get that opportunity against Joshua when Joshua could have been at his weakest. And he hasn't fought in a while. So for me, I feel he has served that sentence, if not officially in terms of it being on his record. I think he's got a bad reputation anyway. What can he do in the division? I don't know. I would probably have to lean to him being in the lower tier of the top guys in the heavyweight. Reason being is because we're going to have to judge him now off of his performance, his high output, knowing that he got busted, essentially. So is he going to be able to maintain that high work ethic? You know, he seems to be able to throw punches in bunches, but he's very, if we're being frank, a bit overweight. So that's what I want to see. Does he start to trim down and then we see a different game plan from him? I can't see him challenging any of the top 4, in my opinion, top 5. But let's see what happens in July, and then let's probably see what happens to the rest of the year.
Darryl, what do you think about Jarrell Miller? Is he overhyped a bit just because of that fight with AJ, because he talks brash, you know, big American? You look at his record, I think his last fight was against Bogdan Dinu. I think that's the biggest name on his resume so far. Bogdan Dinu was unbeaten at the time, though, a big prospect. Do you look at Jarrell Miller as a top 15, top 20 guy? Maybe outside that? I mean, is he as high as maybe a Daniel Dubois or a Joe Joyce?
Yeah, I'd put Jarrell Miller in there. I agree that he's been overhyped to an extent, but I do think that he's controversial. And in this game today, I mean, controversy sells. Even with his up-and-coming comeback, like I'll put it out on my page. You guys looking forward to seeing him come back, and you know, a lot of people are like, nah, can't stand him, hate him, and all this. But I bet you any money they'll tune into him when he fights. That's just might not be the right thing, but it's just how boxing is nowadays. And I think that he will draw some attention with his comeback. People will be tuning in to see him lose for them, hopefully, you know. So is he a top 10 contender? Yeah, I'd say so. I think that I actually do think Jarrell Miller could. I think it depends really as to how we see him now, because we don't know how he was before, whether he was juiced up or whether he was on particular sort of drugs or whatever. But I think it'll be important to see how he gets on now in his next fight and upcoming fights for us to really, you know, get a gauge as to where he fit in the heavyweight division. I agree with Kojo. I think the top 4 maybe could be out of his reach for now, but there are some solid contenders in there. I'd like to see him go up against, like, if Joshua was to beat Pulev, I'd like to see him fight a Pulev. I'd like to see him take on a Michael Hunter. There's loads of guys in the heavyweight division that he could fight. Joe Joyce. They were talking about that. So in a way, it's not, he's coming back regardless. So now he's coming back. I want to see him in these fights.
I'm going to stick with you, Darrell. How do you think AJ would have got on with the juiced up Jarrell Miller? We saw AJ kind of flattered to deceive us really with the performance against Andy Ruiz. What do you think he would have done with a guy like Jarrell Miller, who at the time had crazy output in terms of punches? We know he was juiced up with Endurodol, HGH, every drug you can basically get under the sun. How do you think that fight would have played out?
I think it would have been quite difficult for AJ in the early going, I think, because I think that Miller would have just steamed ahead at him and applied some serious pressure onto him. And I think it would really depend on whether AJ would have been able to land and hurt him early. I think if he was able to do that and get his respect early, then I think it would be quite an easy fight for AJ. But I think it would have depended on the early rounds for me as to how Miller was getting it up close and whether he was able to do some damage, or whether like AJ could catch him with something early on and kind of make him hesitant to go in. I think it was kind of dependent on that for me. I would have picked AJ to win anyway, but I thought it would have been a difficult fight up until the end.
Kojo, why is there such a different reaction to when certain boxers get caught for taking drugs? Again, for example, Jarrell Miller's coming back right now and there's uproar about him coming back. We know in the past, Canelo has taken drugs and people have just forgotten about it. Billy Joe Saunders got popped just before the Demetrius Andrade fight. It's forgotten. Tyson Fury, it's forgotten. Jarrell Miller, we have an issue. What's the problem? I mean, look, let's be honest. Most of these guys are taking stuff. Jarrell Miller, though, gets popped and everyone goes crazy. But other fighters get popped and it seems to get almost swept under the carpet very, very quickly. What's the issue here?
If I'm going to, apart from saying the common denominators with the three guys you mentioned before, I think if we're being serious, I think we've got to look at the types of drugs that Jarrell Miller took. I think you named them, the process. So like he was injecting into his bum. It wasn't just like supplements or some type of tablets that was increasing your stamina. It was, or meat, if you like, it was actual injection. So I think that's where he's definitely let himself down. And I think that's why we've seen a big criticism on that part. I think probably as well, he doesn't have a promoter that can stand in front of it. I think regardless whether when you had Frank Warren, you've got Eddie Hearn, even Aaron to a degree, they know how to play with the media. They're very quick with their words. And I think that can help deflect. I'm not saying that they're less guilty. I just think that your promoter standing side by side can help deflect some of that attention. I felt with Jarrell Miller 100%, which was rightly so, he was left to defend himself and he couldn't because he had nowhere to, he didn't have a leg to stand on. So that's my personal opinion with the Jarrell Miller situation.
Darrell, Dillian Whyte, WBC. I don't know where to start with this, but in the last sort of 5 or 6 days, we know that Dillian Whyte has taken legal action against the WBC because of this mandatory shot. It's difficult to really understand it because we've not seen the letters. I personally don't understand what he's suing for yet, because obviously his shot is not due until February 21st, 2021. We're now videoing this, June 17th, 2020. So there are 6 or 7 months to go until he's shot. So what is he taking legal action for? Do you understand it? And do you feel sorry for Dillian Whyte when it comes to this WBC situation? Some don't. Some say, okay, look, he had his shot possibly against Anthony Joshua. He turned it down. That was a world title shot. Wembley Stadium, 4 belts on the line. But that aside, that's a different organization. Do you feel sorry for him in this situation with the WBC?
Yeah, to a degree. I don't feel completely sorry for him, but I do feel that he feels like he's been shafted. But I'm like you. I was a bit puzzled when I heard the news that he was taking legal action because, as you just said, is June 17th, 18th today. His title shot was not due until February 2021. We know that we're currently going through a pandemic right now, so there's been no fights. So it's kind of like, when I saw the news, I was like, oh, why is he taking him to court? Is it because of all the recent news that's been floating about between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, with that potentially getting signed? Is it because of all of that stuff? And then I kind of thought, actually, let me put myself in Dillian Whyte's shoes. Maybe he's kind of letting the WBC know that if you do go down this route and you do tend to put these fights above me, then just know that I'm coming with this. So just to let you guys know, I'm ready to go to court if it has to go to court. Because it didn't say that he's taking them to court. It just said that he's like looking into legal action. So I don't know exactly how far he's gone with it. I didn't get the details of that, but I think it may be due to him just trying to cover his own back.
Yeah, Kojo, what's your take on this? Dillian Whyte, WBC. Is it going to be a situation where the WBC are going to all be pressed against a wall where they just say, okay, you know what, we've just got to elevate Tyson Fury to be a franchise champion, and Dillian Whyte will give you the belt. This is the belt you wanted. It might not be the shot against Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder, but here's the belt. The same way we saw with Devin Haney, the same way we saw with Charlo. Are we getting into a situation where Dillian Whyte might get his shot, but he won't get a shot against the fight he wants to fight, but he'll get his belt?
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that you made, because it's not about just getting the shot. I think it's about the financials that come with that shot. So you fight a Fury, you fight a Deontay Wilder, those are big paydays. Being granted a belt via email, where's the associated payday? So you need to build that afterwards. So for me, I think, I do think from an advice, I'd like to know who's advising him, because you raised the point, what is he suing them for? I think there's ample time for the WBC to kind of say to themselves, well, yeah, February 21 is so far away. How can we make a decision now? But outside of all of that, let's be fair. We've been in a pandemic. A pandemic would mean things are thrown out of kilter. Things being thrown out of kilter means contracts are probably not going to have the same weight they did pre-corona. So, for example, Fury to Wilder, if that happens next year, January, who's going to say that they're wrong? I can't see how you have an argument in court to say, listen, where was we going to react? How will we make this fight? We want fans in attendance. It's a huge heavyweight fight, and we're going to do it behind closed doors. So I just don't know who's advising, and I'd like to know, because I think it's probably the wrong move. Yeah,
I think he could be going on emotion. Sorry to interrupt there. I think it could be a lot of emotion involved, man. I mean, he's online every day. He's seeing everybody talk about, Fury and AJ possibly happening, a 2-fight deal being arranged. He's probably feeling a bit upset about that. He's seen his promoter, just banging on about this Fury and AJ fight, breaking news on Sky Sports, and, you know what I mean? And he's just probably thinking like, rah, man, like I've got my shot too. So I think it could be down to that, man. I think that those could be some of the reasons behind it, in my opinion.
Yeah. Chucking this to any of you, does he have a right to be upset with Eddie Hearn? I mean, I look at it and I think Eddie Hearn has done a decent job, if I'm honest with you. Yes, he might not have gotten him that world title shot, but in terms of Dillian Whyte selling out arenas, Dillian Whyte fighting guys on pay-per-view, making good money, I think Dillian Whyte's admit that himself. Does he have a right to look at Eddie Hearn and say, you know what, you've not done what you're supposed to do? You should have got me my or is it the WBC? I'm inclined to think it's the WBC. But some people are saying, I think Frank Warren, this week said, you know what, no, it's your promoter. Any one of you, Kojo, Darrell, who's to blame here? WBC or promoter?
I think you could place the blame on a bit of both, to be honest. But then again, with Eddie Hearn, I think Dillian Whyte knew what he was going into when he went into that agreement with Hearn, promotional agreement. He knew that AJ was going to be Hearn's number one regardless. He knew that. With the WBC, I think, they have been playing some games. So I'd lay the blame definitely more with them than Eddie Hearn, because Eddie Hearn has, I've seen anyway, tried to campaign for Dillian Whyte to get a shot. But I just think if it comes down to it, he's going to pick AJ over him because that's his number one guy.
Yeah. Kojo, though, it's not like Eddie Hearn has put a matchroom fighter in front of Deontay Wilder. So it's not like someone like a Michael Hunter's got the shot, or even guys that have signed to him recently, like a Joseph Parker. The guys that got the shots instead of Dillian Whyte were Dominic Breazeale, Luis Ortiz, again, and Tyson Fury. These aren't matchroom fighters. So why wouldn't Eddie Hearn back for Dillian Whyte to get a shot above those guys? Does that make sense? Yeah,
and I think I agree with you on that. It's a really hard one. I think you have to add Dillian Whyte into the mix as well, in terms of, is he to blame for aligning himself purely with the WBC? I get it. It's an iconic belt, but there were 4 other belts out there which maybe could have helped you get to that world title shot as a unification quicker. So
are you counting the IBO as part of this as well now?
Well, you've got to play the game. I think boxing is a political game. A lot of people do that. They get their rankings up in other areas to allow them to go across. So I think he could have done that a bit. I think you can't blame Eddie Hearn fully, and I think you can't blame the WBC fully as well, because, again, I respect Dillian Whyte a lot. I think his improvement from the Joshua fight was clear for us to see. But are we really going to say that Lucas Browne is a name that deserves you to get a title shot? I think Joseph Parker, 100%. Is Chisora a defining name to get you a title shot? So I feel that all parties are to blame. And I think outside of that, you had the fact that everybody wanted to see Wilder versus Joshua. So I felt that was the fight people were trying to get rather than Wilder versus Dillian Whyte, in my opinion.
Yeah, to be fair, and I'm going to stick up for Dillian Whyte here, and people would say I don't stick up for Dillian Whyte a lot. I'm going to. I understand what you're saying about is Lucas Browne, is Joseph Parker, Oscar Rivas. But I mean, who did Dominic Brazil beat? I mean, who did Bermain Stavern beat second time round? I mean, who did Luis Ortiz beat? So if I'm Dillian Whyte sitting at home, I'm watching these guys get these opportunities. I'm like, wait a minute. People are saying that Lucas Browne is no one, but who's Dominic Brazil beat? What's Dominic Brazil's biggest win? I still don't know, if honestly. And I'm a massive Luis Ortiz fan. You guys know that. But what's his biggest win? I mean, Oscar Rivas is look. No one wants Oscar Rivas. No one wants that kind of fight, right? Joseph Parker's a solid win. Solid win. So if I'm him, I'm thinking, wait a minute, WBC, I'm fighting for you. I'm doing these international fights. I'm doing the silver belts. You're taking a percentage of my purse when you're sanctioning these fights. So I'm doing all I need to do. You're not sticking to your part of the agreement here. So I think the WBC are doing him wrong big time.
Yeah, so and if I could just come back to that, I think you are right, because he's done what he's had to do. I feel there has been a back and forth, but it's that whole thing of the politics now. And who's to blame? Maybe it's more solely with the WBC, but I felt the politics, now that we've moved on with Fury being a champion and Joshua being a champion, I think we tend to forget there are details that is a commentary when these fights are being made. And I think that would have played its part. I think Dillian Wilder said he wanted to fight Whyte if Joshua was at the end of that. Would that have got him his title shot? I don't know. I just feel probably all three could have done things better. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say more than who's at fault. I think all three of them could have done things better, in my opinion.
Daryl, how do you think Dillian Whyte gets on with all those three? Deontay Wilder, AJ again, and Fury. I feel like we as fans have got Wilder, AJ, and Fury so far in front of the other guys. So when we hear about maybe AJ fighting someone else or Fury fighting someone else, it doesn't sound as glamorous. When I feel that there's some good fights in the heavyweight mix, I feel like a lot of the guys in the top 10 match up well. I just feel like we've put AJ, Fury, Wilder so far in front that when people do talk about Fury versus Dillian Whyte, people are like, nah. I think Fury versus Dillian Whyte's a good fight. Do I think Fury wins? Absolutely, but I think it's a great fight nonetheless.
Yeah, I was having an argument with somebody. Well, not an argument, just like a back and forth with somebody on Twitter about.
Oh no, that's an argument. That's an argument.
Yeah, yeah. It was just it's important. I mean, I think we can all agree that like Fury, Wilder, and AJ are the top three in the division.
The Ring magazine though has Whyte above Wilder now. But I agree with you. I think Fury, AJ, Wilder. I agree.
I wouldn't have that. I just think that against those three, would Dillian Whyte be my favorite? No, but he's got a chance to beat all of them. I mean, he could beat like Fury, for example. Like the person who I was speaking to was saying that there's just no way Fury loses to this person. I'm like, do you guys not remember that Fury nearly got stopped on a cut to Otto Wallin? He would have lost that. So let's not like put these guys up too high where we feel like they can't be defeated, because they can. Styles make fights at the end of the day. I would pick AJ to beat Whyte again. I would pick Fury to beat Whyte. I'd pick Wilder to beat Whyte, if I'm being honest. But does Whyte have a chance in all three of those fights? Definitely. And I think with Wilder specifically, it'd give him a great fight. If he can, it's easy to say, but if he was able to get out of range from that right hand and able to work his way in and rough Wilder up, I think he'd do it worse than Fury did. But I just think Wilder would defeat him with that right, to be honest. And then with AJ, he's beaten him before. Fury, I think his style, I think if he's on song, I think he'd beat Whyte too. So while I say Whyte does have a chance, I'd pick all three of those guys to beat him. And that's nothing against Whyte, because I do actually really like Dillian Whyte as a fighter, but that's just my honest opinion.
Kojo, Dillian Whyte, is he sleeping on Povetkin? A lot has been spoken about in the last couple of months about him versus AJ. him versus Wilder, him wanting that Fury fight. Even Chisora started to kind of poke at Dillian Whyte a bit. Dillian Whyte's poked back. Not much talk, though, from Dillian Whyte about Povetkin. And let's be honest, in the rankings, I mean, people have Dillian Whyte as number 4, Povetkin number 6. That's how close it is. I mean, are we, as fans, sleeping on Povetkin? A lot of people are talking about what's next for Whyte, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, August 15th, you've got this tough SOB in Povetkin, who I think still got a lot left. I saw him against Michael Hunter. We were both ringside for that. There's a lot left there. What do you think?
Yeah, so I have to say, I do think Dillian Whyte has got the beating of Povetkin. I think Dillian Whyte, especially being focused, he seems to be training very hard out in Portugal at the moment, and he's somebody that is trying to improve on his craft. I think that he's got the power, which I felt Michael Hunter didn't have, to really kind of knock Povetkin off his feet. And for me, I like Povetkin, but I think he will not be able to be as elusive as he was maybe against David Price, against Dillian Whyte, because I think Dillian Whyte will be on him from round one. And it will be similar to like the Joseph Parker, where he's kind of roughing him up and bullying him. So I think Povetkin is a credible fighter, and I think this will be a great win for Dillian Whyte should he beat Povetkin in style.
All right, quick question, last question, sorry, about Dillian Whyte before we move on, because I'm tired of talking about this Dillian Whyte situation. Does Dillian Whyte get a shot at Tyson Fury before AJ? Darrell, you first.
No.
Simple, no.
No, because I just think from Tyson Fury's interview the other day, he seems to be willing to give up that belt rather than fight Dillian Whyte. He's got his guys in his head that he wants to fight, and that includes AJ. So I think he'd give up the belt first before taking on Whyte. And let's remember, Tyson Fury hasn't made a defense of the heavyweight title yet. So I think he'll just do what he wants in that situation. So my answer is no.
All right, sorry, Kojo. 1 second, Darrell, then. If he does get, and I've said this on my channel as well, that personally, I want to see all the belts on the line. But if I'm honest with you, I don't really care. I mean, I've said that if Tyson Fury gives up the WBC, let's be honest, the WBC will create a new belt. They'll create another diamond shiny belt for him versus AJ. And I've said I think AJ should give up the IBF belt against Pulev. Chuck it away. I just want to see Fury versus AJ. There'll still be 2 or 3 belts on the line. The Ring Magazine belt will be on the line. Kojo, question to you and Darrell, actually. Do you guys care if the WBC and the IBF aren't on the line? Does it take away from the fight? Or does it need to be an undisputed for everything, all the marbles? Kojo, you first.
Yeah. As a actual fan, and I allude to your point, I want to see the 2 guys in the ring. So for me, no. I think in the bigger picture, in the grander scheme of things, it probably does, because it's nice to have that, all the belts, all the diamonds on the line, and the 2 top guys who arguably, if they've got all the belts, bringing these belts to the ring. That's number 1. That's number 2. With so much behind it, you know, just that photo of seeing the guy with 4, 5, 6 belts around their waist, Mayweather, Canelo, Ward, those are iconic photos. So I do think it would be nice if there was and nobody was stripped, and we were able to get that unification. I can't see Dillian Whyte going ahead of Joshua. And I also think if you're looking at it of Eddie Hearn, his bosses, Dillian Whyte, and his bosses, Joshua, well, who pays more? Joshua. Money talks in this game. So I can't see that happening.
Money does talk. We've all spoken about Tyson Fury versus either AJ or Tyson Fury versus Dillian Whyte. There is another man in that equation, and that man is Deontay Wilder. There is a trilogy fight going to happen. Percentage-wise, so just a percentage number, what percentage chance do you give Wilder against Fury in the trilogy fight? Darrell, you first.
I'd say 30%.
That's quite high. That's quite high.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not ruling out Wilder completely, man. I mean, he's going to come into this fight motivated. He knows if he loses it, it's going to be a long way back to the top for him. He's going to be that guy where, why is anyone going to want to fight him when, you know, you could end up being stretched out on your back, and for what? He doesn't have anything to show for it. So I think Wilder will pull it all out there, but I'll still make Fury the overwhelming favourite. So yeah, I'd say 30% chance for Wilder.
Kojo?
Yeah, similar. Like I was thinking 25%. Because for me, I think boxing, no matter what, we always say somebody has a puncher's chance. And I think he's the definition of having a puncher's chance. So, yeah, I can't totally rule him out. For me, I think it's important to see not just what he says, how he behaves, how he's training. That will give me an indication as to whether I'll raise that percentage. But at the moment, I'm stuck on 25% because it's a puncher's chance. Yeah.
Is that all we're giving him right now, a puncher's chance? I mean, there has been talk about maybe bringing some people into camp, like what AJ did in the rematch with Ruiz, put people into camp. Do we just think that's all he's got really, is that right hand? Like, there's nothing else. In terms of boxing ability, there's not much there.
Yeah, sorry to interject. Yeah, I do think he has more, but I think the key thing is who he brings in. You know, if he doesn't bring anybody of value, of their soul, then what difference is it going to make? Because again, you're not fighting maybe a bit of an underdog the way Joshua was against Ruiz. You're fighting Tyson Fury. Do you know what I mean? So, like, the person you bring in has to really be astute, has to really understand tactics. I think you've got the time to execute certain game plans, set certain traps. But for me, it's who he brings in. But on top of that, it's the acknowledgement and just saying, I was beaten by the better man this night. I'm gonna make myself better, and done with the excuses. So, sorry.
Yeah, Darrell, we heard excuses after the second loss. I'm about to say the first loss because it really was a first loss as well. But the second loss, we heard excuses about the outfit, even though the outfit was amazing, by the way. By the way, how sick was that outfit? I mean, that is the best outfit I've ever seen in my life.
I didn't like it. I hated it. You didn't like it? I hated it.
When it started to glow up like that, I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
I was like, what is he doing?
I mean, there's that, right? And then there's the complete opposite, which is Mike Tyson, which has come to the ring with nothing.
No frills. Yeah.
And this guy comes and then you lose, it doesn't look good. But we heard excuses, Darrell, in the second fight about the outfit, weighing down his legs. He thinks that his trainer shouldn't have thrown the towel in. I mean, should he have humbled himself a bit and just said, you know what, like what Kojo's saying, you know, best man beat me, let's kind of roll the dice again? Or is it because you've almost got to make excuses, right? I mean, as a fighter that's never lost, you've got to think, how did I lose? You can't go in there thinking this guy's just better than me. There's got to be a reason why you lost.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it's kind of for show, that Wilder's just kind of saying that, and deep down when he's behind closed doors speaking to his team, he does actually believe, like, look, something went wrong here. It wasn't down to the suit. I know I've said that publicly, but we need to get down to the real reasons as to why I lost this, and like have a look at the fight, study the tapes, have the trainers. Because if they are going into the second fight with that mindset that, oh, he just had an off night, oh, it was the suit or whatever, then, you know, it's going to be an even easier fight for Fury next time round. So I'm kind of hoping it was just for show, that he just kind of said that, and they are looking at ways to improve. And I think, you know what, behind the scenes, I think he is doing that because he has sought the advice from the likes of George Foreman. Mm-hmm. He has spoken to, like, I think he's spoken to Mayweather, or Mayweather's reached out to him. But I think Wilder's kind of behind the scenes is probably looking at it as, you know, like, you know, I need to find a way to defeat him next time round, rather than just thinking of it as being, you know, it was more all my doing and not anything to do with Fury as to why I lost. Because that's why I really respect AJ, because when he lost to Ruiz, had no excuses. You know, he said the better man won. He said he was going to come back and he was going to go back to the drawing board. He did say a punch from the gods though, or something, didn't he? Didn't he say something like a punch from the gods? He did, yeah, but I think it was misinterpreted the way out. Like when he said it, like suddenly everyone jumped his back, like, oh, he's saying it was a lucky shot. But I think he just meant that he was in his groove, he was in the zone, and then this shot just came out of nowhere and caught him. You know, like so. With Wilder, yeah. Anyway, I think that it kind of is for sure. I think I'm hoping that he does actually believe that there was something that he needs to work on for the next fight. Otherwise, it's just going to be another easy fight for Fury.
Do either of you actually really believe that we are going to see AJ versus Fury summer of 2021?
You know what? I'm going to be positive and say, yeah, I think we will.
Yeah,
I think we will.
I mean, look, Addy, you're the man in the know, so you might know some more details than us. But I would say yes, provided Joshua beats Pulev, Fury beats Wilder. I think they both know that this is a huge opportunity in British boxing history. I think we would see it. I think probably the grey area is the location. I think that's going to be a big sort of like point that they need to get her over. That's going to be a big hurdle. Like, where will this fight take place?
What is the bigger financial fight? Fury beating Wilder and Fury and AJ getting on, or Wilder beating Fury and Wilder and AJ getting it on? What do you think brings in the most ch-ch-ch-ching?
Before his BLM.
They'll still buy his tickets.
Yeah, you probably would have to say Wilder, right? Just because then he brings that US crowd, and then Joshua's bringing the UK crowd, because I don't think Joshua's name is as big as Wilder or Fury's in the States. It is big, but I don't think he's done that.
Yeah, he's not known at all. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
I mean, they want to say he is, but let's be honest. AJ can walk down the street and no one will know who he is.
Yeah.
Right. So I probably would say Wilder versus Joshua brings the most amount of money, because you're talking about two guys from different sides of the Atlantic. So then Sky get to eat if it's here, and if it's his own in the States, and then make or pay-per-view. I think how that works, that's another argument. But yeah.
I'd have to agree on that one. I think boxing's a tribal sport, and I think if Wilder's representing America, Joshua's representing the UK. I mean, for us, obviously, Fury and AJ is like huge. It's like the biggest British boxing fight we'd get, but we have to think outside of these shores as well. And I think while it's so massive for us, it's probably not as massive over in the States, because there's no American representative in that fight. What I mean? They'll watch it, but I mean, it's more like, I just think with Joshua against Wilder, I think it would have both sides of the pond like really like into it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, yeah.
No, it does. All right, a quick nostalgia one here. I've been seeing this kind of float around on Twitter the last couple of days. I'm a massive Nigel Benn fan. You guys know that. But I'm not going to sit on the fence with this one. I do want to hear your opinion before I give you my pick here. Nigel Benn versus Carl Froch at super middleweight. The reason this came up, because Carl Froch done his top 5 super middleweights the other day. I think he had Mikael Kessler at number 5, Joe Calzaghe at number 4, himself at number 3, Andre Ward, and then Roy Jones Jr. And a lot of people said, wait a minute, what about Chris Eubank Jr. and Nigel Benn? Obviously, these guys fought most of their career at middleweight, but they still done very good things at super middleweight. Nigel Benn beat Joe McClellan in that crazy fight, right? I mean, that's solid. Do you think Nigel Benn would have beat Carl Froch, or Carl Froch, Nigel Benn? I don't know who to go to first here. I'm pointing. Let's go, Kojo. Kojo, what do you say?
Yeah, I'll say. I have to be honest. I think Froch doesn't get his credit. I'm a bit of a Froch fan, because I think that he's in terms of all action. He brings the fight. He's got very tough chin. I think he stood up to a lot of shots, even when he's looked dazed. And he's come back fighting. Nigel Benn, I think it would be a cracking fight for the fans, but I would probably say Froch may just get the better of him and stop him.
No!
Yeah, I know. Sorry, guys.
So I think I have to agree with you, Kojo, man. I think I'd go for Froch in that as well. Is for the same reasons. I just think that Froch doesn't get, in my opinion, he doesn't get the credit that I think he deserves. I mean, I know a lot of it is down to people just not liking him or for whatever reason, but I do, when you look at it, Ward did make a good point when he said that there were quite a few fights that could have went against Froch in his career. He could have had more than 2 defeats on his resume for sure. But I think in that sort of fight with Nigel Benn, I just think Froch's chin probably would have held up a bit better, which is why I'd go side with Froch.
Yeah, as much as I'm playing here, I go with Froch as well. I'm a massive Nigel Benn fan. I think the Joe McClellan fight at super middleweight was fantastic. Showed massive amounts of adversity to get up from, I think it was the first round he got put down in. Eubank fight at super middleweight, very good as well. But let's not fuck about with Carl Froch's resume. And I hate when people break down a resume and say, oh, but who did that person beat after then? The fights at the time were bloody tough fights. Lucien Boutte was that was supposed to be one hell of a tough fight. And we saw what he done with Boutte. Andre Dirrell, Kessler fight. Andre Dirrell, a young, fast, hungry Andre Dirrell, a young and massive Jean Pascal. You know how big Jean Pascal is when he's going up to light heavyweight and not looking sort of undersized. Yeah, and he fought the young version of that. No scars on him at all, and done him as well. So I think Carl Froch would have got through Nigel Benn. I think Chris Eubank Jr. Chris Eubank Sr. would have been a tougher fight. just from a technical standpoint. He's very technical in the way he boxes,
Yeah.
very composed. But I think Froch would have tried to have a phone booth fight with Nigel Benn, and it pains me to say I think he would have come out of the phone booth. I think Nigel Benn would have got knocked out.
Would have been one bloody phone booth, that would be, wouldn't it?
Oh my God, you'd have to still enforce that phone booth, especially because when Nigel Benn is, because when Nigel Benn's hurt as well, you know that's the craziest Nigel Benn. Yeah. As soon as you hurt him, you know, you have to be on your guard. Mm-hmm. Big time. Guys, quick last couple of points. We always look for the next superstar in boxing. I do anyway. I don't know why. I feel like for boxing to grow, it almost needs this kind of flag bearer. If you think of years gone by, you think of sort of nearly 20 years ago, Oscar De La Hoya, Roy Jones Jr. were the guys. Then it moved on to the Pac-Mans, Floyd Mayweather's, and to an extent, you know, Miguel Cotto's Hatton over here. Now we've got Canelo and Joshua. Where's the next one? Like, who do you guys think are the next guys to almost be that flag bearer? And I don't mean flag bearer for boxing. I mean flag bearer for sports, but boxing. So every other sports people know who they are. Like most other guys that follow other sports will know who Joshua is. Maybe not so much Canelo, but we'll definitely know who Joshua is. Definitely know who Floyd and Pac-Man were. So I'm looking for someone that kind of steps outside of boxing and is just the person that everybody knows. Who's this guy, people? I'm struggling. Is it Ryan Garcia? I'm keep hearing about Ryan Garcia. Is it Ryan?
I mean, yeah, for me, like, when you ask most people that, I'm sure they'll likely mention, there's a host of names in like the lightweight division, like Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, go a division below, you've got Shakur Stevenson. Those guys, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that they'll be mentioned. But for me personally, I don't know how much of a crossover star they'll be in terms of like appealing to like other sports. But I really like the look of Virgil Ortiz, for one. I like the look of him. I think he's had a standout amateur career as a professional right now. I think he's doing good things. He's got Golden Boy behind him, who produced the likes of Canelo and Ryan Garcia and Oscar De La Hoya as well. I think in that part of the world, you know, California, LA, it is a big market for him to become a superstar there. He's in the right division as well. So I think that he's got a lot of potential for me. Another person, Jaron Ennis as well. I think he's another one that has a lot of potential to become a star. Yeah, so both welterweights, yeah. I think both of those two can become big stars in the future. If we're going to not talk about the lightweights, because I'm sure that they would have been mentioned anyway, but those two for me are ones that I've got my eye on.
Kojo, 1 second. It's funny you mentioned Jaron Ennis there. Jaron Ennis, I think, is something like 25-0, 23 knockouts. Yep. If Jaron Ennis was over here in the UK, he would be someone already. We'd be going crazy about him. What's going on with America and pushing these stars? Like, I'm not joking. Like, he would be a name over here already. We'd be going saying, we've got one. And in America, it's almost like we consistently talk about the same welterweights all the time. Furman, Spence, Crawford, Pac-Man, Garcia, both Garcias, right? I mean, we don't talk about the new upcoming kids. And Jaron Ennis is a guy that should be in the mix already. I mean, it should be the guy that kind of fights one of these guys, almost like kind of a crossover type fight. Yeah. What's going on with America and promotion of these fighters?
I think from someone like Jaron Ennis, and I have to say, great shout, Darryl, because he was on my list.
Was he?
Oh, yeah, he can say that now. How do we know he's on your list?
But and I'm going to say, if I can say the others as well, but I think with him, he's too much of a risk. I think you look at that division, who's really going to want to fight him that has a belt? Yes, they may win, but is it worth it? Is in terms of the money, the toughness of the fight? Do you know what I mean? I think, you know, Spence Jr. recently came out and said, you know, I'm not really interested in the Ugas fight, which makes sense, but also, you know, it's a tough fight for you because
sorry, Kojo, why do they even have that as an option to say? Like, why? This is the problem with boxing, isn't it? Why did these boxers almost like get that choice of saying, don't fancy that one? Surely there should be almost like a league table where you have to. This guy, Jaron Ennis, is now number 10. You have to fight number 7. I mean, you don't get a choice. But why is it like these boxers now almost, they get to a certain level and it's almost like they can just pick and choose. Like, don't want that one, take that one. And I'm like, that makes no sense. And I think that's what holds the sport back. It makes no sense in producing the new talent because we get so fixated with the old talent And it's like all the old talent want to fight each other, and it takes so long for a new guy to come in.
Money. The money is with the old talent, and I'm not trying to simplify it, but I think it's money. I think it's a depth of talent as well. Because we speak about the lightweight division stats, super middleweight division stats. So I just feel once they're all on the same side as well, from a political promotional perspective, how is John Ennis is really going to get this shot to demand fighting Spence Jr. in Texas Stadium? I just don't see it.
So basically, you're saying that unless you have a fan base behind you, which is quite rare in the African American community when it comes to boxing, if you're a Mexican coming up, you know that they're behind you big time, right? I think that's fair to say. So unless you have a fan base or a top promoter, good luck. You have to work your way up to a mandatory shot. You're not going to get a voluntary shot.
Yeah, Spence Jr. had to do that, and then he had to come to the UK to fight Brook, and he was chasing Brook and Thurman for a while. So, yeah, that's how I see it. If I could just also go back to the start. So where you've put the crossover bit, that's what's thrown me. Now, this is a guy, I don't think he will be a crossover, so like F1 rugby guys will know him. But in Britain, there's a guy who I think is a really good talent, in my opinion, a guy called Dennis McCann. He's in a bantamweight southpaw. I think he's a very slick
very
boxer.
flashy as well.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And I think with the gypsy background, I think the way Tyson Fury is now, Billy Joe Saunders is now, I think that could also help him get a bit of trajectory. And I think he could be a pay-per-view star for the UK. Outside of your Joshua Buatsis and Okolis, I think Dennis McCann is probably one of those guys, in my opinion, that could come through as a dark horse.
Even though he's at a smaller weight class, because there's been a tradition, apart from Prince Nassim Hamed, there's always a tradition with sort of fighters around the world, really, that the higher weight class means more attraction, more eyes on you. That's just every sport, even the same at MMA. No one seems to care about the low weight class guys too much, and they should, because the bantamweights, the flyweights, super flies, I mean, talent stacked there. But we saw it with the likes of Chocolatito and Estrada. Only now they're starting to get the eyes on them, and these guys have been world elite level for years.
And Rigon down as well. You can add that to the list, and even potentially Lomachenko when he was lower down. What it is for me with McCann, I think potentially he's going to be able to speak and he's going to show his personality. And I think that's what might get the British public to kind of get behind him. So it doesn't matter if it's a lower weight for them, they're backing him, and he could potentially headline some shows. I mean, it's probably maybe 12, 18 months out from that. But I think he's one of those guys that could really make a bit of an impact.
He's with Frank Warren, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Darryl, anyone from the UK scene? Yeah. Eddie's got his eyes on him.
For sure. Anyone from the UK scene? Yeah. I mean, like you mentioned there, I think Buatsi has a good chance. He's in the thriving division right now. Light heavyweight, there's a lot of good fights to be made. How shocking was it that Vostik retired, by the way? That threw me off a lot. But back to Buatsi.
Back to Vostik retiring. You're right. I mean, that shocked the hell out of me. I mean, maybe it's that Berta had beaten. He thought, you know what? Fuck this.
I don't want any more of this. Yeah.
Honestly, what is the point? But also, we don't know about the injuries behind the scenes. Obviously, these guys do a lot of their testing. And if something comes up with, a bit wrong, they will just say, and they won't tell what it is, they'll just retire. And I do wonder if he's done his medicals and something's come up adverse and he's like, you know what, it's just not worth it. Because he was a top prospect. A lot of people spoke about him. But he ran into that machine, basically, in Bertabiev, and boy.
And if I can add to that as well, I think, again, it's boxing game and the money. Because I think he got a good purse from that fight. I've heard something about he's got business interests, so he feels comfortable. But I think we should also remember what happened with him and Stevenson, Adonis Stevenson. He was the one that actually injured him, put him in a coma. So I do feel when boxers fight guys and they really hurt them, I think they have a bit more awareness of their own health. Do you know what I mean? And I think probably he just thought, maybe, I don't know, he could return, but I think maybe he just thought, I've made a bit of money. I'm going to maybe just sit this out for now because that division is stacked.
That division is frightening because you mentioned Buatsi there, Darryl, and he's a guy that maybe 12 months ago I was thinking was going to be that guy to go as well. But then everyone keeps asking me, Ade, who do you match up with Buatsi once he gets to that European fringe world level? And I've said to everyone, it's sharks everywhere. You literally can grab anyone out of that top 10 and you're in trouble. guys without belts. Forget the guys that have belts. Forget Bivol and Bertavia for a second. Obviously, there's going to be a fight for the vacant title that Canelo left. But there's guys out there like Marcus Brown and
Pascal, Badu Jack.
They're just horrible. It's horrid. Do you know what I mean? These are guys that have experience. They're big at the weight. They're strong. They can box. They've been in there for world title fights, a lot of them. It's an awful division. So as much as I think Buatsi could be it, how Eddie Hearn's going to navigate him through those sharks, no idea.
I think he'll have to, he'll have to be cautious with how he does it. But the reason why I just think Buatsi, I think that when it will come down to him sinking or swimming, I think that he will find a way to swim in that division. And not only that, if we're looking at crossover appeal, you have to look at, he's got Anthony Joshua backing him. He's got Eddie Hearn backing him. I think he's got Nike endorsements behind him.
Doesn't talk much, does he? Doesn't talk much, does he, though?
No, he's not.
Kojo, I know you've interviewed him, Kojo. It must have been hard to get a couple of words out. It doesn't talk much.
To be fair, in the interview, and I've built a rapport with him, he was okay, but I know what you mean. I think he does keep his personality a bit reserved, I feel.
Yeah, I must get him off the show and just bring out that Ghanaian, that real Ghanaian man in him.
Wait, don't serve him Nigerian jollof, brother. He will be silent. Sorry, Daryl.
What about Lawrence Okoli, Daryl?
Yeah, I like Lawrence Okoli, man. But I just don't know with his, not everyone's appreciative of his style, and I think that might.
Are you appreciative of his style?
Yeah, I am. I'm not one to say, this guy, I hate watching him fight and stuff. He knocks people out. He's got personality. He's got charisma. Not all of the poor fights are his fault. Some of them are, but not all of them are. Like, I don't look at them like, oh, this is all Okoli's doing, because for me, I think he'd want to go in there and bang as well. But he's so tall. I've seen this guy in person.
He's
massive. Sure you guys have as well. He's massive.
He's massive. I don't think people at home realize how big he is. He's a heavyweight. He's a heavyweight.
I didn't realize he was that big when I saw him. And then when I actually did see him, I was like, wow, he's actually he's a huge guy.
Yeah, 6'4". I think he's about 6'4". He's massive.
Some of these guys going in there with him, I think it's just going to be naturally awkward anyway. Yeah. And you need to look at his career, man. He's progressed far in his career already. So
he's got through British and European level without breaking a sweat. And
I think he should get more respect for that.
Yeah, way more. As much as people like this, his boxing style, I've openly said that he needs to fight better in close. At range, he's good. But in close, he doesn't know what to do in terms of hold and grapple a little bit. This is a guy that's been able to go through British and European without knowing how to box inside. If Shane McGuigan can teach this guy how to box inside, I'm telling you now, the cruiserweight division's in trouble in the next... Not even the cruiserweight, some heavyweights are in trouble in the next sort of 2 years because, again, he's made it look easy, like dismantling the British guys. And they all diss him after, saying, oh, you can't fight inside. Well, we'll beat him then. Exactly. He's been able to knock all of you guys out pretty much easily. And what he done to the European champion in Garber, who was on drugs as well at the time, knocked him out as well. Yeah. Okoli's a dangerous, dangerous guy. Final question. Someone asked me on Twitter, Ade, what do you think about Conor Benn? What do you guys think, guys? Conor Benn, can you do anything? Welterweight? They're talking about a potential fight with Josh Kelly. They've been talking about that fight for about a year now. I'm not sure. Josh Kelly is, I think, yeah. That's a tough fight for Josh Kelly, by the way. Bloody hell. Good luck. Yeah. Conor Benn. Everyone's gone silent when I said Conor Benn. What's going on? No one wants to big up Conor Benn.
I was waiting for Kojo.
To be fair, what can he do? If we were to list 10 of even if we took 5 from the US, and if you really want to take 5 from the UK, would he be? Where would he be? Would he be in the top half? No. You look at the guys who have belts. If they said he's fighting Pacquiao end of this year, would you give him a chance? Crawford?
Conor Benn?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely not. I'm more thinking about British level fights, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah,
he's way away. Yeah, he's way away.
He's way away. So British fights. And yeah, I don't really get. I'll be honest. I think without the name, I think he would have struggled to really command a spot on the Sky Sports shows, the attention he gets. I think he's working hard. I'll give him that, but I'm not really. I don't see much of coming from Conor Benn, to be honest with you, brother.
Daryl, is that unfair on him in the sense that, look, the name's the name, right? I sometimes feel like that name puts extra pressure on him. It's almost like, okay, you're headlining cards or you're very high up on cards, you've got to perform. And he probably wants to be low down on cards, right? Coming through, learning the trade where you don't put so much a critical eye on a guy coming up, right? You can watch them make mistakes and you can say, oh, fair dues, I expected that because he's only had 12 fights. I think when he's thrusted into the limelight and his dad is Nigel Benn and we all love Nigel Benn, we're expecting to see this guy throw 4 or 5 punch combinations. And we forget there wasn't much amateur record, none really. And now he's doing his stuff on the program. That ain't easy.
Yeah, and you have to remember, like, I think his first matchroom fight, I mean, it was like he was the main event, wasn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
there was a huge crowd there to watch him, and like his dad was there. So I have to say, I think Conor Benn's come a long way in his career. I mean, there's still some flaws there, but I do think that he has done well in his career so far. With regards to him getting to that elite level, I can't see it personally, but I do think he can make a career out of it at British level. I think he can make for some exciting fights. And I think it's important to say as well, I mean, you have a loss here or there. It's not the end of the world, man. I think it's in boxing fans' heads that you take a loss, that's it. Like, you can't come back. And even if he was to lose to Josh Kelly, if he put in a good fight with him, made it entertaining, then, there's room for other fights to be made. I mean, he's in that sort of division. So, while I don't think he'll hit the elite level, I think he can make for some exciting fights out there. But with the name, like having the name on the back of your head, is very difficult to live up to that sort of pressure.
All right, talking about names, another son of a famous fighter, nemesis of Nigel Benn, Eubank Jr. What do we think of him? Middleweight division. I think he can do some damage. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm still just too excited because I see him hit that thing he punches, and I go crazy when I see it. But I think with Roy Jones Jr., I don't think he's that far off. Do I think he's elite world level? No. Do I think he's fringe world level? Absolutely. He lives the life as well. We know he's tough as old boots, as they say. He can take a punch. Not the greatest boxer, but I think his work rate and the fact that he lives the life might get him to a place where he can cause some damage.
Yeah. For me, I think Eubank Jr. Is not elite, but I think he's a good fighter. And in a strange way, if they were to guide him right, now that he's basing himself out of the US, he could become a big name because he speaks very well. I think if you've ever interviewed him, ever met him, you're actually kind of surprised that he's not a one-word answer type of man. He can go into detail. He is a person that likes to study. If you kind of look behind the facade of the Eubank name, like, he went to Cuba, he studied, he worked out of the Mayweather gym. Now he's going to Roy Jones Jr. So he's always tried to learn and educate himself in the art of boxing. So I'll give him his credit for that. I just think he probably needs to avenge that Billy Joe Saunders defeat, because I feel that is always the one thing that gets chucked at him. It was a close fight, but I think if he can do that, I think he can really push on and be a big name. And there's some good fights out there for him, in my opinion.
I'll tell you one fight I really want to see, which I think could be close to getting made, is him against Jamal Charlo. I think that's a great fight in America, and I've seen them two kind of, well, not really Charlo, but I've seen Eubank throw shots at him over there, saying he's not impressed and saying that he'd fight him and he'd beat him. So hopefully it's something that can be worked on, because he was on a BBC show at the end of last year. So maybe they are working towards that fight. And with Charlo, I don't really know where his career is going at the moment in the middleweight division. So I think that could be a fight that will be made. And if Eubank Jr. was to win that, then I think he will really go down big in the States. And because he's already big in the UK, but I think in the States he'll really go down well over there if he can defeat one of those stars.
I think both Charlo's stock has slightly dipped a little bit in the last sort of 12, 24 months. There was a time when I thought they were the next two. Like, when you talk about guys that were going to go on and do good numbers, and I don't know what it was saying about them. Maybe it was their arrogance that I thought people actually liked. And then they seemed to cross the line with the arrogance, where it came a bit disturbing, especially when I think Jacobs pulled up on the older Charlo, the bigger Charlo, and hot him up. And that kind of just squashed that thing about you being a bad boy. I was like, oh, wait, you just got pulled up on there, my friend. But I'm not sure about the both Charlos, but I think Eubank versus, I think it's Jamal Charlo. I always get those two mixed up. I think
Jamal,
it is Jamal, isn't it? I think that would be a good fight. All right, last couple of points. I know time is running out on us. Billy Joe Saunders. if not Canelo, and it looks like it won't be Canelo, if I'm honest, just listening to what people are saying out of the States and with the zone, who for Billy Joe Saunders? I mean, the idea was you go with Matchroom. That's why, remember, he left Frank to go with Matchroom to get the big fights. Am I missing something here? And so far, he's been on the undercard of KSI versus Logan Paul. And which, look, he made his money, which is what you need to get right. He got the checks. But that wasn't the reason he signed to Matchroom. He signed to Matchroom to get Canelo, to get GGG, to get Demetrius Andrade. And let's not forget, Andrade, the fight for Andrade was with Frank Warren, not with Eddie Hearn. So what next for Billy Joe Saunders?
Me, Darryl, do you want me to go or you want to?
Yeah, you go, bro.
Right, yeah. I'm probably going to sound a bit harsh here, but I think he has to fight somebody like Callum Smith. I think, okay, they will say, oh, it's not happening, it's not feasible, but I think Billy Joe Saunders is a good talent. I think he needs to be testing himself at the high level. And I worry for him because I feel if he isn't careful, his career is going to kind of just dwindle away. Okay, you've got a belt now, but was to winning that belt, was it a great fight? Do we remember who you beat? Not necessarily. And I think for us to really see your skill set, I think we need to see you against a top opponent. I think Callum Smith is a great fighter. We've seen him win the Arlie Trophy. They're in the same country. It could be a big fight on a Gates perspective, you know, if it's an arena or a stadium. For me, I think he needs to go in like that. He probably won't, but anything else, I'm not really interested in, unless it's, you know, again, like a Caleb Plant at Benavides. But again, with the travel, I don't see how that happens. For me, it has to be a Callum Smith.
Errol, Callum Smith for you as well, or maybe one of the guys at 160, maybe Dave Vanchenko, maybe even the Danny Jacobs at 168.
Yeah, I mean, there's no excuses, man. I mean, there are so many guys at 160 and 168. Like, there's no excuse not to have a fight with one of these guys. I mean, Danny Jacobs is easy to make. Callum Smith is easy to make. Andrade is easy to make. Like, maybe Eubank Jr. wouldn't be as easy to, but there's so many names up in between 160 and 168 that he could fight. Caleb Plant, that's a great fight. We've seen Billy Joe Saunders travel before and win, and impressively. So it is something that can be done, but I just think I'm kind of like Kojo said, man, I'm kind of like, we want to see it now. He's got the talent,
that,
but
money's an issue. And I know that sounds like an obvious statement, but I think we saw Ryan Garcia turn down, I think it was $200,000 to fight on July, I think it was June 28th or July 28th or something. I do wonder if, like, we keep saying all these fighters want to fight each other. I do wonder once it gets to the negotiating table, if they all of them just price themselves out of fights.
I don't think so.
Clearly they're not scared.
I don't think so, Billy Joe, because I saw a recent interview with him on IFL, and he was saying that, you know, he's made a lot of money in boxing. He's comfortable with. He said he's not going to be forced into something that he doesn't need to do. But I think that's the problem right there. I think we kind of need to see that urgency of you wanting to have the Canelo fight or anybody else. But he don't strike me as somebody that's greedy when it comes to money, Billy Joe Saunders. I think if he gets paid correctly, he'll take it. But we just want to see the fight.
But I look at his resume at 160, now at 168, and I'm like, okay, that resume right now with the guys that, like we've just mentioned, a few of them that are around at 160 and 168, that resume should be stacked. Like, everyone talks about Canelo wanting Canelo money and Canelo maybe being a bit greedy. Well, Canelo's resume tells me he can be greedy because I see a stacked resume there, you know? And I look at some of the guys at 160 and 168, and I'm like, stop talking and fight. There's too much of this on Twitter nowadays. There's too much of, I want this person, that person. Why does Canelo seem to take all these fights and have all these fights? At 154, 160, now 175. I mean, come on, what's going on? I don't get it. And people might say, yeah, but Canelo's getting the most money. Canelo wasn't always getting the most money. I think people always seem to think of now, and they forget of Canelo 154 coming up. He wasn't the A side all the time. He's taken B side money himself a few times just to get some big fights. But sometimes a lot of these fighters now don't want to take B side money. They all want to cut an A check.
I think the mentality is different nowadays, man. And I won't put all the blame to Mayweather, but he kind of allowed a lot of boxers to think, you know, in terms of the business side of things rather than just getting in there and fighting. And
is that not a good thing?
No, it is a good thing, but I think it can have some side effects where we might not see fights where we want to see because there's a dispute over pay. We've seen that loads of times, but I think that might be part of the reason.
Yeah.
Roger, what do you think finally?
Yeah, I think money is always going to be an issue. I think what fighters say in the public sphere is different, as you're saying, to when they get that percentage split, and you're like, hang on a minute, I'm getting 20% of this purse, 25%, even if it is a big number. So I think money will always play its part. I don't necessarily think it's so with Billy Joe. I don't know what it is, if I'm being honest. That's why I'm interested to see how fights are arranged under her. And maybe Warren couldn't get it over the line. Who knows? But I think for a lot of fighters, Crawford's recently come out and said, I'm not, like, he values himself at a high level and he's not going to fight for less than X amount. But if you're not fighting the top opponents, how are we going to generate that money? So that's a conundrum for the promoters and the networks. But I think you're probably right. Money is preventative in terms of us getting the fights we want to see. Yeah.
All right, guys, I think we've touched on an hour here. I didn't expect it to be that long. I thought it was going to be 30 minutes, but this is the problem when you get 3 boxing heads together. We could go on and on. I could order some food, get a bottle of Jack Daniels and keep going. But guys, thank you so much for being part of Ade and Friends Part 2. No doubt we're going to do it a lot more. No doubt I'm going to come on your channels a lot more. Again, guys, let's not forget to check out Raps on TV. That's Kojo's channel. Boxing Lowdown. That's Darrell's channel. I will appear on their channels as well. In fact, this might go on their channel as well. Guys, take it and put it on your channel. Let's just all share.
No, you do your thing, bro. You know me.
Let's all share. But guys, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Honestly, guys, thank you so much. We will have you on again very, very soon, no doubt. But much appreciated, people.
Perfect. Thank you very much, brother. Take care.
Thanks.